Hello and welcome back to the Basil Breen Boombox with my very special guest, Daniel Crowe.
It's stuck. Yeah.
Let's do it all right. I was thinking about getting you to play the didgeridoo. I know we didn't discuss that, but it's too late now. It's like a thing for guests to do, potentially. I don't know though.
Yeah.
How would you have felt if I had said
better than you? Yeah. I saw your attempt the last time, which was literally just do didgeridoo.
Anyway,
I can't play didgeridoo.
No one can play didgeridoo, right? It's something the professional didgeridoers over in Australia, we leave them to it, you know what I mean? But we'll say no more on the didgeridoo because I have good old Daniel here once again in the sitting room. How do you like the new setup?
It's amazing. And the pole in the corner as well.
He knows what to say, doesn't he?
Huh?
He knows the right things to touch my ego in the right way.
It's very pink.
Yeah, well, he was actually wanting to take this down, if I'm being honest. I could just tell. He was like anti-pink fluffy blanket on the television.
Yeah, but then I thought, it's not my studio.
See? And that's why I do it, because I have all the authority. Just like a particular man in Europe, but we won't get into that. But we actually did a podcast before, the Trap Chatterbox, which is your own podcast, and that was kind of one of my first enterings into this kind of world of podcasting. And then doing it in the sitting room kind of made me feel, Jesus, maybe you could give this a shot. Obviously, I think it's easier with someone else, but how did you feel like we got on with that one?
We ran over time. But do you know what, right? We ran over time quite a bit. The editing process was not a short editing process. But do you know what I realised when I started doing it was you're in lockdown, you're trying to speak to people, right? It's not the same. If I have to contact you and I say I want to have a talk to you about whatever. And it's not just you. I spoke to probably 3-4 people before you. It's a one-sided conversation. You're turning up expecting an interview.
Yeah.
So when I turn up, in my head, when I started this whole thing, I bring the subject matter, and then we have a conversation. But what I've always found was that you turn up and people just waited for you to ask your question, and then they'd be like, yeah, so, and after that, I'm going...
And the pressure, the onus is on you as the owner of the podcast to have to keep it going and keep it kind of flowing in a way. So if there's any kind of stagnation, that's where questions are obviously a great remedy for addressing the stagnant waters that you find yourself in. But it does become very interviewy, you know what I mean? And
it's like I said, you want to come with the subject matter, and then after a few minutes, someone goes, what's your favourite coloured horse? And you go, oh, brilliant. Okay, right, we're off of that, and now we're into a proper conversation.
It never kind of went that way.
It never really happened. So that's after the one we did, that was the one I thought. I walked away and I went, there's stuff there that's really usable, but I thought the next time, if I'm to keep going with the podcast idea, it cannot just be something where I'm turning up and interviewing people. Do you know why? Because I actually don't have an interest in it.
Yeah.
I have no interest in just turning up. I have an interest in meeting people. But it's not like...
you have your own ideas and stuff as well that you want to kind of get out in a way.
Do you go out? Do you go out to pubs and stuff?
I was at Carnival, would you believe, there in Dicey's. I went on a Sunday during the day, but I don't drink, so I was able to drive in and out.
Right.
It was good. I was actually amazing to kind of... we're getting into this one a little bit, but the Brazilian people have some music. I don't know if you've ever... I've just been surrounded by all these Brazilians, right? And they're all like, ah, la, ba, la, da, la, 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 la. And every song, they know all the songs, and they're all shouting in each other's faces. And they have songs for days, for hours of this song, and they're all just having a great time. And I was just really appreciative of the Brazilian culture. But to answer your question, I do. I
was wondering there for a second.
I'm mad to go out.
How did he just do that?
I'm just... Look, you're on the Basil Breen podcast now, you know what I mean?
It was the point I was making was when you go out to a pub, you're not sitting talking one thing. And come here to me. I've been in that position so many times. You go out and you meet somebody, and just on hello, you go, they're kind of interesting, you know, and there's something about them that you're like, oh, I could learn a little bit more about that. After a few minutes, though, you're getting another round in, and you're like, do you watch the football?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're onto something different. That's what I wanted. That was the spirit of what I wanted when I started the podcast. And once I realised that's not what it was, I was like, God, can I keep doing that? Am I interested in it? I'm not. I even started a blog. I'm not even interested in blogging.
Yeah.
But it was like a form of expression. Like you're like, I want to express somehow. And then I was doing two things. I was like, I actually have no interest unless it's somebody who can take it down a different road.
But
and maybe where you're concerned, I'm probably not prepared for that, actually.
Well, but it's hard if you're coming to people and you're saying, would you like to be on my podcast? There is this kind of contract that it feels like it's your thing and you're going to be leading the charge. So it's I think now we talked about this a little bit, you know what I mean? And I do want to keep it more conversational anyway.
Right.
But I think it's just it's hard for other people who haven't done anything like this before. I think now that I've done this a bit, I'm a lot more comfortable now. I don't really care about just, you know, getting these sound bites and then being just like, all right, give me another question now. Come on. Like, it was kind of set up that way because I'd only done kind of interviewy type of things before that were being recorded as Basil Breen, you know what I mean? But now that I've done it a few times, I think that I'm much less afraid of just speaking, you know what I mean, and being recorded, you know. So I think
I've seen you. I've seen, like, you know, I'm sure people have seen your live broadcast.
See in a minute or two,
like just go. Like, that's it. It's literally just as we had here. Start and go, right? But you, like, and I noticed this the last time we were talking, right? Last sort of podcast where I very quietly kind of sat in the corner there. Your brain, to me, seems like fireworks all going off at once. It's like you start down a road of an idea, and then you're on very quickly to another road of an idea. And that's what I'm saying, is that when you're doing that as a form of a podcast or a live stream, it's easy to come out with 30 minutes of content. You know what I mean? I think it's a genuine skill, which I'm probably not there yet. I probably had it better 2 years ago, to start down a road of conversation and keep it there. Yeah. You go off track a little bit, but you keep it there.
Oh yeah.
But what turns you on to doing these ones just by yourself? Because I saw you were doing these now. I love podcasts. I've gotten so much from listening to podcasts. You know, I listen to loads of stuff. Even I always have something playing everywhere I go. If I'm doing dishes, I just like and I know it's a bit of a problem. Yeah. Sometimes you're not letting yourself think, but you're always so all these little things that I've picked up along the way. When I start thinking, Jesus, and I've in conversations with people, I'd be like, oh, what have you heard about this? Have you heard about that? And I was just like, Jesus, what if we could start getting this value out there in a way? And that was part of it. But you know, I love to perform. That's a part of me that I'm only after kind of realising in the last few years. I like the idea of performing for other people. Like, knowing that the camera's on changes me in some way that I can't really touch, but right. I know that it's there. I know there's a definite kind of switch or something. You know what I mean? There's kind of it's more geared towards performance. Now, it's not like I'm constructing this character, but I'm even more me, if that makes sense. I'm able to turn it up more because let's say you have friends, right, who you can be fully yourself with. Now, you might only have a few of them, and then other people, you know, even fully yourself with somebody isn't actually fully yourself, I think, now that I'm thinking about it, because everyone kind of puts a different persona on you. The relationship that you have with someone, you'll be a certain fit for them in whatever way you are. But I think with the podcast, and I'm only thinking of this now, is that the conversation's with myself. So I know me
as fully as anybody knows. You know what I mean? And obviously I can't see everything. I can't see who I am from the outside, and there's obviously blind spots. But that conversation with myself, I'm not shying away. I'm not dumbing things down. I'm trying to really get into it with myself in a way. And even now that I know it's being recorded, because I know I'm going to be listening to it, that aspect remains in a way.
Do you know I had that more? That exact thing. I know exactly what you're talking about. I had that more prior to March 2020. Right? I swear to God, I've thought about this a lot because you get a lot of time to think about it. Prior to lockdown, coronavirus, you're out all the time meeting people and you're honing, like, and my brain's working 100 miles an hour. You're all the time honing thoughts and opinions that you have, your character, whatever it is, because you're constantly available to people to keep sharpening that persona. And then you go into lockdown, and now you don't have those same people. And this is partly why I wanted to start the podcast. All of a sudden, the brain is working a little bit slower. That sort of lively side that you say comes out when the camera comes on, that's not there as much. And I never realised just how much I actually need to bounce off people to bring me out of me.
Yeah, and if you lose the skill of being able to talk to people when that's removed, and you take for granted that you're able to talk to people, but if you go kind of long periods without seeing people or being out even, because that's why I only realised, just going back to being out in the pubs for the first time in ages, being around people and having conversations and practicing the art of conversation and crack, you lose that ability 100%.
Yeah. That was why I wanted to. That's what, honestly, I swear to God, that's why I was like, please talk to me. You know, anyone, please talk to me. But you can't sort of you can't manufacture through a video camera an energetic environment. Doesn't matter what the situation is. Like, you see it, companies now having parties via the webcam, which I think is the most pointless thing I've ever heard in my life.
Stop.
Like, everyone's just sitting at home on their own with a drink in hand, having the party at work, watching, and I can never understand it. You can't mimic the energy that you get speaking to somebody.
Just the presence, like, of someone else in the room and having to interact with them, and the body language, and even stuff that we can't even perceive, like smell, you know what I mean, and hormones. Who knows what else is going on in the dance of people coming together. And yeah, to think that the party's on Zoom, that sounds grim, man. And it's so horrible because the lag as well. It's like, what did you say, Jeremy? It's like,
So while you're gone, I downed the rest of me vodka and Coke. That's I just had to top it up a new one. It's ridiculous. And I'd get asked, do you want to come along, and do you want to, Friday night we're all going to meet up on Zoom. Lads, please.
That
honestly,
kills me,
just
man.
stop it.
Just stop it. Let's get real here, boys. Like, we're not doing the Zoom
And
thing.
you know what? Look, most people sitting at home will go, shut up. We had a great time. Stop.
It is now. Is it better than nothing?
I mean, obviously, it's better than nothing.
Well, there you go.
But it's
next question.
It's not that much better than nothing. Look, honestly,
it's so far removed. I know what you mean.
Yeah, but you know what? I saw a TikTok video recently enough where I went, you know what? That's actually true. And it was a video of a girl who was playing like 4 roles. She was playing the 4 roles, and it was her coming back and meeting her friends, right? And each friend after lockdown had gone through the entire of 2 years of the coronavirus and the lockdown, the pandemic, and each one had moved further on in their life. You know, one's married, one's having a child, one's got a new job promotion. And you're going, when you're trying to converse through Zoom, this is my experience, when you're trying to converse through Zoom or phone calls or whatever, the lack of energy I found in those meant I would sooner just not talk to the people that I was actually... Swear to God, I know how miserable that sounds. But I would sooner, because it's not the same. We're not getting onto the phone now to have the crack with each other. We're getting on the phone to fill in the blanks. Like, what's happening with you lately?
I know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean? And after a while, I was like, that does not even compare to going out and doing stuff together. And if we can't do that, well, then I'll see you when I see you.
There's something about organised calls with people who aren't with you. Do you know the classic questions you go back to? Like, what time is it over there? What's the weather like over there? That's like we have defaults. You know what I mean? We can't help ourselves. We're humans, and it's okay. I don't mind small talk. You know what I mean? But it's funny how when there's more of a plan. Oh, how's the sister doing in Canada? That's something that I get all the time. When I was away, Sean was getting that all the time, because it's just we need stuff that's easy though, like easy to get into with conversation. You know what I mean? We can't just jump straight into like your philosophy on Ukraine. You know what I mean? It's like, how's the weather?
But I prefer that. I prefer that. Now, we know what the situation is, Ukraine and shit. Like, it's pretty dark. Yeah. But I prefer that. There's like, I found that there's always like 3 questions that are like the basics for people to feel comfortable with you as soon as they meet you. One is, what do you do for work? The other is, are you married? Do you have kids? And there was a third one. Maybe that second one was actually broken up into 2 parts. But there's 3 starter questions. And I always found that immediately, if you're a person who starts with those questions, speaking for me personally, if you're someone who starts with those questions, then that's how you would find whether or not you're comfortable with somebody. If I'm starting with those ones.
Now, that first question, what do you do for work? I like the premise, because once you get people talking about what they do, you're onto a winner. You know what I mean? Because then, and you don't have to be disingenuous about this. They will say something that you will genuinely find interested in, and as soon as someone says something you're interested in, then you can just jump in and be like, "What? Tell me more about that." Like, and it's genuine and it's real. But yeah, you have to kind of get people talking. So questions are good, but for me, that question, it feels a bit. It has to fit some sort of, perhaps people who have felt, you know, maybe that they're not where they want to be, or they're not doing what they want to do. If you ask that directly, then they could come out with some sort of defensive answer, depending if, oh yeah, I'm doing this now, but you know, I'm really thinking about doing this. Or if it's from parents or relations, you're less likely to say, I'm going all in on a podcast, or oh yeah, no, I'm in between jobs now. I've been on the dole and I've never been happier. You know, you're not going to say that. You know what I mean? And you're not going to really say it to people that you just meet. So for them kind of stuff, you know, for me, there was this time in work, right, where we accidentally, there was this lad who was very self-conscious about his age, and you could just tell he hated talking about his age, right? And like, I knew he was self-conscious about his age. He was like 34 or something.
So I kept asking him.
Yeah, no, but I knew that it was a sore point. So once I know there's a sore point with someone, I would never even imagine going near that, right? Because what's the point? But one of the other lads I work with, you know, he was talking about Harry Potter. He's like, you weren't around when Harry Potter was rare. Like, definitely not. Like, look how old you are. Like, and then I was like, oh, don't do that to him. You know what I mean? Because you could tell he was.
But there's a way. There's a way. Everything, and like a comedian will say that as well. There's nothing or no topic that you can't touch. Every single one can be spoken about, but there's a way that you speak about it. It's the same with, if this guy is insecure about his age, instead of just going, why are you insecure about your age, right? Why not ask it in, like, you know, in a quiet situation of one-to-one? Do you mind if I ask you? You don't have to answer the question, right? I've sort of noticed such and such about your reaction to... do you have a problem with speaking about your age? Because I have had friends who we went through a period of our friendship, and not a small period, like a decent period. We didn't even know their age.
Well,
because they didn't want to tell you. So after a while, you kind of go, right, we'll leave that alone. But you ask it in a way. Everything can be asked in a way, and I always try to do that. Let's talk about shit here. Yeah. Not you know, the weather outside and what do you do for work. Like, let's fucking talk about stuff. And I always found that the best way to do it was to ask it in a way. You are under no obligation to answer this question, but can I ask you? always the best way to go.
Yeah. So Dad, he just his first day at work, he's just taking this lad in. Let's say, look, I know we don't really know each other that well, but you have a thing about your age. I can tell. What is about your age? Like, it's because you're old, is it?
Yeah. You could even come in and go, look, you're in your 40s. That's okay. And he's like, I'm not fucking in my 40s.
I know what you're saying, and there is a way to get into it. There is always a way to ask, but there's always I think there's other avenues and questions as well. It's like natural kind of meanders into things to kind of peel back the onion, because, I find that people can be sometimes a bit cagey, as we all, especially in work scenarios, business scenarios, and the only thing that I found that to really get people to let loose is to tell them sort of things that you wouldn't just tell somebody that you just met, perhaps, or just be real open about certain experiences, which I have an example in my head, but I won't get into now. There's some things that stay with Basil, and they'll stay with him until the next episode, so you'll have to tune in.
Yeah. There's a breadcrumb.
I will get in. There's stuff I could get into, but I'm just saying in general, because I know exactly, like, people in work, especially when I was in London, there's the kind of the English loved this like Irish loudmouth that was just blah blah blah. And it's like easy for me to kind of get it on because people were very uptight. You know what I mean? They wouldn't curse. They wouldn't say cunt. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, I'm after losing half of my audience there.
My favourite word.
Not that I'd overuse it, but I'm not a fear of that word. Do you know what I mean? But there is that way of letting people let their guard down by just showing them, by you just letting it let down. And then they're like, all right, yeah, I can let you know about this other weird thing that happened to me. Because there's always kind of stuff that you can relate to. I think if you can just like open up the floodgates, because at first we're like this, and then when someone just goes, they flash you a little bit, and then the other person goes, and then you're flashing a little bit more, and then you're naked on the Basil Breen podcast.
And now let's talk about our emotions. Now let's talk about our emotions. Yeah. But again, prior to I cannot tell you, like, 2020 was like a precipitous decline. I think you don't want to make it too fucking miserable, but there's like 2020. I'm telling you, is like a BC and AD, like in my own life, I would say, and that would be something that totally agree with what you say there as well. Open up, show that you've nothing to hide. People to do the same. I'm trying to find that again. I used to do that a long, long time ago, and I'm willing to do that. But, like, I don't know, are people just generally less willing to do it now, or am I not looking in the right places? People are less willing to just open up about themselves.
Well, I think you need enough time and enough interactions with a particular individual, whatever. It can happen over time, you know what I mean? So if you're not having enough interactions, then it's not really, there's no real possibility for it to happen. But I even find what's given me a bit more liberation and freedom is just doing this podcast, the same way Buskin did, and listening back to yourself and just being like, because you're like, and then you're improving all the time on whatever improvement means to you. You know what I mean? Like, are you able to? My thing now I'm trying to work on is transitions. Just being able to transition, especially when I'm on my own. You know what I mean? And not just going, anyway, enough talking about that. Let's talk about this thing. Which, it doesn't. It's not the end of the world, but it's just like, if it's a song. Imagine you're listening to a song. You're listening to it like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and it flows together. Each song kind of meshes into the next one.
But is that because you're looking for like a pristine aesthetic?
There's something I like about stuff that's not clunky in a way. Now, clunkiness is just a natural part of speaking. If you if you read a transcript of this, you'd see ums, ems, likes, stuff that and then repeating the same word and then just reformulating the same idea with just a different sentence. So it's just part of conversation. You know what I mean? It's not this document that you're working and typing up and spell checking and everything. Yeah. Everything's just coming out, and people don't mind that. You know what I mean? Because we know what a conversation's like. We don't need it to be perfect. But one thing you do notice is that the people around you, you notice their verbal tics a lot. Like, I know people that use like, because I know how bad I do it. You know what I mean?
You said that before.
Yeah.
You said that before.
When I can hear someone else and they can't. Everything's like. I can't unhear it now.
but that's in place of a pause for thought, isn't it? I do that as well. I was observing that myself. I used to take the piss out of an American friend of mine. Every second word out of her mouth was like. And I said it to her once. I was like. And then after a while, I realised I was doing it.
Yeah.
But it's in place of a pause for thought.
We're afraid of the silences, I think, in a way. We don't like to have the silences there, so we just say like, and then another one. I used to take the piss out of someone for saying, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Just because you can end everything with you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I do it all the time. Always. Or you know. Yeah. My uncles will just go, you know.
Yeah.
Without even finishing a whole sentence. They'll go, and he was up there and you know. And I know what he means for something, like, even though he didn't finish it.
Do you know what I mean? I do believe I know what you mean.
I do.
Yeah, I do believe.
There's something very interesting in this idea, in that you can shorten sentences, and before I finish it, you kind of know where I'm going. Because conversation's insane if you don't want to think about it too much, especially when you're recording a podcast. But the idea of words just falling out, and we're able to just do it. It's amazing that we're able to just speak.
But that's an Irish thing, I think. The freneticism to how Irish people speak is, it's almost, I don't know, is there an aspect of just speaking so quick your brain hasn't fully caught up yet? You know what I mean? Like you've put it out there. But there's a freneticism to how the Irish speak. I think that's why like bad language features so much. Like there's a self-deprecating humour in there as well. There's a freneticism to how the Irish speak that underlies all that with it's for the crack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's for the crack. And that speech pattern feeds into it's for the crack. Whereas other nations who probably don't think about, the crack in the same way, it's not such a big thing for them. They probably would be a little bit more formulated in how they think and how they speak.
I was watching a documentary on YouTube. It's a 4-part documentary on Mountjoy. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
It was a few years ago. But it's unbelievable. It's one of the best pieces of television I've ever seen. It's a real kind of drawn out documentary, but it gets into... Now, it's heartbreaking, you know what I mean? It's not like all sunshine and rainbows. Some of these people, you're seeing them on the road to recovery and then they stumble and, there's heroin and drugs and it's just a terrible place to be. But there's something about the Irish spirit in the interactions when they're being brought into somewhere, the little hope you's had me dinner ready, like, and all the little crack, and even the sergeants are like, the way they're talking to them all, it's like, oh, come on man, what are you doing here, like, you're blah blah blah, like, and I can't imagine. I was just thinking, in the UK there'd be none of this crack in the prisons in the UK. Well, I don't know, but maybe
I was going to say you don't know though, but
I don't know, but when I was watching it, there's just something very Irish about, even in dire circumstances and messers, and like it's like, oh, like I'm sorry, like, and it's just something. There was just something really nice to watch, even though it was terrible situations. But even in the most, like, some lad lost his leg to heroin. He lost his whole family to heroin, and somehow, even though he's waiting to go back into Mountjoy and he's limping, right, and you don't know he has no leg, and then suddenly he has to get changed, and then you're like, oh my goodness, he's not just limping, he has a fake leg, and still, it's grim, but he's able to kind of put the Irish spirit.
Yeah, but aren't those? I don't even think that's just an Irish spirit thing. That's people who've been through trauma. People who've been through trauma come out the other side. Do you know what? Actually, relating it back to something that you said recently enough about your own dad, about when he passed away, there was almost a relief in it, right? It's the waiting for something to happen, the fear of something happening, that sort of freezes you up a bit. Once it happens, you go, okay. And even in the instance of this fella who loses his leg, goes, well, that's something now that you would worry about. I heard of a fella recently. I played football with him once or twice, and lovely fella, absolute mad scone, right? Dubbed through and through, absolute nutter. He lost his leg recently. He had a clot in his leg, lost his leg, and I played football with him once or twice. And you just realise stuff like that can happen to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you adapt. You find a new, stronger attitude, you persevere a little bit, and now your worldview changes as a result of it. You know?
No, there's definitely part of that. There's definitely, you know, once you've kind of been in the darkness, you know, it's easy to be brighter on levels up from that. Because I think, just going back to, you know, the parent stuff, the fact that I had lost my parents or whatever young enough, it kind of made... I know this is terrible to say, but imagine I died in a funny way, right? If I was in a ski accident and I, you know, came down the thing and I splat straight onto a tree, and like, imagine like, oh yeah, he was skiing and like he just went straight into the tree and he was like, and he was like this, and you're trying to be sad, but I'd want people to think that was funny. I know it's terrible to say, but I'd be laughing at that. That's what we don't understand. When every time I'm looking at things and it's about death or someone that's died, I think, what would they say right now? And the only thing I can imagine anybody that's dead would say is that nothing matters. We're all gonna die, so just relax. What else could they say? Because they won't care. They know that it ends. They actually really know that it ends. And if you really know that it ends, then you really are liberated and you can really relax and you can really be like, you know, obviously, you know, hate and crime and violence is bad. Like, we don't want to bring more suffering onto the world. But at the end of the day, lots of stuff that we care about is pointless to worry about. In a way.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I've been thinking about that so much, but I'll get to that in a second. I think about that point a lot. Do you know what? People think that thinking about death is morbid. I don't necessarily think it is. Again, it probably depends on how you think about death, right? But just to think about who was it? Was it fucking Marcus Aurelius or something? Was it Memento Mori or whatever it is?
The Stoics.
Right? Yeah. There's nothing. It motivates you. It motivates you. And sometimes I've actually found myself in these really upsetting circumstances. Someone has died. Someone is dying. I found myself in it. And literally I've been able to mentally and emotionally separate myself. Even from close family. And you just kind of go... It's really bizarre actually, because you kind of go, I should be more emotional about this, but I also can't help realising that this is a fact of life. It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's a fact of life that eventually we're all going to be here one day. And I think it's a cultural thing. You go to an Irish funeral and it's grieving and it's very upset and stuff like that. And I remember there was a guy I went to school with, Victor, absolutely lovely guy.
Victor, I remember him.
He died when he was 15, right? And the funeral for him, school turned up, the funeral for him was unbelievable. Cheer and good vibes and good energy and stuff like that. And I remember that, I can't remember who the woman was that was speaking, but she was like, it is a circle of life that we're going to end up here. You know, even though he was only young, it's a circle of life. And they were still able to bring that cheer. And I kind of, in upsetting circumstances, I do try to think about that. That in other cultures, they wouldn't be just maudlin and grieving. I try to do that when I'm going to a funeral. I don't know, maybe that's how I can emotionally check out of it a little bit more. Maybe that's what it is.
It's definitely, you know, there's definitely defense mechanisms in us that protect us from, you know, certain emotional baggage or having to feel certain ways. Even when my dad was dying, he had cancer, but I never really recognised it. I was playing some like weird game. I was playing the game with the world that there was a kind of fundamental shift after like he died, and then after my first breakup, where I realised that I was kind of manipulating the world in subtle ways, in ways that I was playing this kind of game and I was portraying this kind of game and not really coming to terms with certain realities.
How?
And well, like with my dad, in a weird way, I'd been on to him about his health for ages, and we kind of it's a terrible situation because when he had to tell me he had cancer, like he kind of had to say, justify it, like it's not the liver, it's not because the smokes, like it's because of, and it was kind of a weird situation because I'd gone hard on him about his health and being like you need to look after yourself or whatever, and that messed up that relationship. So then when it kind of happened, I couldn't. It's like because I'd said what I'd said, it kind of tied me into this reality where I couldn't really get into the fact that he had cancer. It was like and then my friends, I didn't tell it much people, and then when I did, like it was very cagey, and it's a hard situation, you know what I mean? And even some of my friends, one friend in particular, like I was getting close to him and I just started pushing him away, and even get to the stage where he's kind of saying, like, is everything all right? Like, what's the crack? But I couldn't let people get close, and that's kind of something that is a theme throughout my life in a way that I hopefully one day someone will get close and it'll be grand. But there is a tendency for me to push back a bit, or like not let people fully in.
Always.
Up to at a certain stage in any relationship that I've
still
been in.
now.
Not really now, as in not to the extent that it was like with my previous, not my last girlfriend, but the one before her. It definitely came about. It only been like 3 serious women, maybe. Shout out, but it kind of gets to a point where I start blaming the other person for, well, in that particular instance, and in the last 2 actually, not being able to do what I want to do and not having the time to do the things that I want to do.
Done it.
And yeah, you have to kind of, if you're going to get in a relationship with someone, you have to give them the worth that they deserve, the time that they deserve, and you have to put them into your life. You can't. It's like if you got a dog, you have to fit the dog into your life. You don't fit your life around a dog. And not just a dog, but a relationship. You can't. They're not something that's in the way. They need to be worked in, and they need to take priority if the relationship is going to work. Otherwise, resentment will build, and you're not going to be able to give them. If they're in it 100% and you're not, then it's not fair. You know what I mean? And so the next time, if there is a next time, because I could end up alone on the Basil Breen Boombox, which that's just doing podcasts alone
65
until
years
I'm 90.
Going, oh my
God, it just didn't
where did it go
for
wrong?
me. It didn't work out for me, you know. But that being said, like I do hope that eventually that won't happen. But I'm worried that there is a tendency for me to always end up resentful of the person that I'm with, in a way.
I don't think that's the case. You probably just haven't found the right one.
Yeah.
If I may. You probably just have... I tell you why. Because I've had that... And again, speaking from my own personal experience, I've had that in previous relationships where I felt like I was needing to sacrifice my time for them. That's what it is. It's exactly as you said. They're not in it 100%. I'm needing to sacrifice my time for this relationship. And it's not always like as fucking cold as that. Like I am giving myself. It's not like that at all. But in a way, you're going. Oh, there's this stuff over here that I need to do. And if you get, so I've been through that. But now in the relationship that I'm in, I never know whether to say a fucking.
It's going great.
Yeah, it is. It is, and.
What do you think? Why do you think that is?
She's supportive, and not to say that the others weren't, but it's like she's supportive in a way that it's really weird to speak about this.
Well, look, you're here now.
Yeah. It's she's supportive in a way that, you kind of go, you can feel like if everything isn't 100% smooth, it's okay. You know, you're in your 30s, early 30s now. If everything isn't, by the book, you don't have everything by the book.
Why pick a fence?
It's okay. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's okay. And And that is something that you sort of worry about. Are you going to get that in somebody?
Oh,
and
man.
like I get the time where I'm sort of left to do my own thing as well. That's important, because if I'm not, if you're not left, then
100%.
you know what I mean. So
You need your time, but what that point you just touched on there, ticking the boxes. The one for me is children, and you know, the last 2 relationships that I've been in, I'm aware that women have a biological clock that's ticking down, unfortunately, and if they want to have kids, they have to make a decision sooner than possibly we have to. You know what I mean? We can put it on a longer finger. You know what I mean? They can't really do that. So there is that, for me, that kind of pressure of, and if you're not feeling it, that's great. And Emma, if you have any friends, you know, send them over. Have a great couch here that's not in the shop. But anyway, the point is that there is this kind of pressure that I was feeling in my last relationship, and she never even explicitly said it. I was just thinking, we're getting on now, and if I'm going to be in this, you know, like it was going really well, but I'm just not ready for that level, moving in with someone, because I live with someone already, and I'm not ready yet. For me, I've too many things that I'm doing, and I need to explore them, and maybe eventually come back to. But I think.
how old are you?
30.
30.
31. June 5th, remember? Send a gift to Basil Breen, Boombox.ie somehow. I don't know. Send an email gift. Send some Bitcoin. There we go. There's digital currency on the way for Basil Breen's birthday. I think it's fine. I'm really happy to get older, because it's actually great that we've lived longer. Imagine living longer. Isn't that a great thing, to live another year and to think, well, people have died way before me. People have died at 15, at 10, younger. You know what I mean? And I'm still alive, and I got to live another year. I get to be 31.
We're so opposite.
It's just
We're so opposite.
and I want to get into this bit. It's because we fear. I had this fear of starting things too late, like, because everything I started, I kind of, like, you know, I was late to the races, right? But who cares, really? Because, you know, all you can do is the thing now. It's like that quote: "The best time to grow a chestnut tree was like 20 years ago, or to plant an acorn." You know, one of them.
Yeah.
I bastardized that, but you know,
It's like that quote.
that's the second time. There's a video of me trying to say that as well online, and that's the second. And I was thinking, I'm gonna nail it this time. I'm gonna get this quote down, and I fucked it up, and I can't start the podcast again now. So we're here with the basic gist of what I said. Is that you can only start now, and you might as well start now, and you might as well think, sure, okay, it's a shame that we didn't start things sooner, or that, you know, we're this age only getting into things now. But it's like, them's the breaks.
When I did, well, an ex-girlfriend said to me once, because I was panicking a couple of years ago for exactly this reason. Got all that energy, got all this sort of stuff that I know is good, but I haven't fully committed to it yet. It's because of fear. You're terrified that it doesn't work, but then you're equally terrified what if it does, right? And that was always a bizarre thing. That sounds really weird to say, but it's like, no. What if it does work? Are you ready for it to work? Anyway, I was, you know, wanting to be a filmmaker, a writer, have a short film to do now this Sunday, but I wanted to do that. Have all these ideas, but then you go through periods of, I've got an idea, it's going to be fucking brilliant. I mean, honestly, it's going to change the face of everything, right? And then you get this crushing sort of, I'm no good, it'll never happen, blah blah blah. And this ex-girlfriend said to me once, when you're ready, it'll happen, right? And there was a moment last year where I went, feeling really great about it, and I actually felt that because I'm older, I can commit to it more. And I went, you know what, she's actually right. She's actually right. When you're ready, it will happen. And maybe you just have to come to a point in your life where you think less about other people's opinions, your own opinions, whatever it might be, and then you can go and do it. But there is always that sort of doubt that because I started too late, am I going to be any use?
But that's what I mean.
You know?
Any use, it just depends on what you define as success. Are you going to be, a millionaire? Am I going to be a world concert pianist who started playing piano at 30? Like, I don't think so. But am I going to be able to get to a place where I can enjoy playing piano and get into music a bit more? That's just one avenue. Or podcasting. Like, you can never really start anything too late because it just depends on what your metrics of success is. Like, I'm not going to go into the NBA. I never am, never will. I know you are looking for me, but the point is that you basically are just going to get better at something if you do the thing, and then if you think it needs... I had a problem with the music. I was thinking, I need to make these radio productions, and I thought that was the answer, getting them out and getting them on the radio and getting them all this. But then I started realising, like, who am I doing this for? Who am I doing this for? Do I need to be successful in this domain in regards to being able to make money, like fame, fortune? Like, do I need any of that? And the only thing we can actually do with our time is spend it on things, and whatever them things are, and whatever them endeavours are, and that's all we have control over. You know what I mean? It doesn't actually matter. Everything else outside that doesn't really matter. If you can sustain yourself doing the thing that you enjoy, I think that's the most important.
Yeah, but that's the thing. For me, I'll be honest with you, for me, the only thing I actually care to do in the future, I don't ever fucking want to work for anyone. I'm saying that right now. That's probably wrecking the next couple of jobs I apply for, right? I don't ever want to work for anyone, right? I don't.
Yeah.
Because I don't, right? For me, I feel that the only way I could sort of go into the future is happily would be to be in a writing position, earning a living off it as a basic step one, earning a living. But that's not the only step you want to get to. You want to be somebody whose work is admired by peers. As a writer, as a director. For me, that is the goal. You start out you want to be a director and people go, Hollywood. I couldn't give a monkeys about Hollywood. All I want to be in a position where what I'm bringing to the table, other podcasters, writers, directors, they go, that Daniel Crowe fella, he's doing some good stuff. That is what I want. But then you also get the other feeling of, but will I ever even get to a point where I'm earning a living off of this, let alone being somebody who is
that's the thing
admired.
And the reality is that your creative pursuits or creative endeavours probably aren't going to sustain a life. Well, it depends on what. If you want to buy a house or whatever, you're going to have to maybe eat shit for a bit, and perhaps I don't think you should say you shouldn't, because you might get. Imagine you were a part of the writing staff for a show. I think you'd love that. You know what I mean? I don't think you'd be like, I don't want to work for them. I don't want to go to write and show and think up funny ideas around a table and write and then be like, oh, that's good, and have your peers. I was listening to a few podcasts about people who've written on SNL and just the dynamic, because they've so many funny people, they're bound to get something funny. So they bring an idea to somebody. It's okay. This guy walks into the coffee place, and then it's like, what? So what happens next? And then they'll all just try, and then someone will say the winner. You know what I mean? But I think you'd enjoy that. So it's not like you wouldn't enjoy work.
No, I suppose I'm talking about for one particular figure. Like, you don't want just a boss and that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a certain company, maybe, as a writing position. But go on, sorry.
Well, anyway, what I mean is that don't block yourself either by saying that the only way I'll be happy is don't ever really say I'm not telling you what to do, but I think you have to be careful, because we do it all the time. I'll say things like, what's the point? I'm setting up my email address for basilbreen.com, but I was like, well, what's the point? No one's going to email me anyway. And then my brother was like, well, like, don't think like that. Like, just think you're moving in the right direction. Don't be so self-deprecating in a way, and don't put ideas like it'll never happen or I need certain things to be happy. And try to find ways of kind of saying, you know, this is potentially I could be happy in work that involves X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? But if you put a blanket up and say, like, no, not just... Oh, hold on. Let me just make sure this is still going. Grand! Jesus, the screen went black and I was worried. But we were onto something there.
Don't limit yourself.
Don't limit yourself, Dan. You're better than that, Dan.
No, I know that. But direction as well. Direction is one thing.
But you'll probably need to earn your salt, like as a like under the wing of someone. Yeah. Like you should actually. Well, it's hard, but I don't know what you should do. But you know, is there someone that you could? I was listening to Gary Vee talk about this. It's either you either have money, talent, or time. Yeah. So if all you have is time, then you can give that time to somebody. You can be like, look, I'll do things for you. You know, I'll bring your umbrella around for you, or whatever. You know what I mean? Is there people in your space that you could learn and develop from, and show your worth, and then earn their respect and credibility that they'll keep you in mind in a way? I don't know. Yeah,
I like Gary Vee. I do like Gary Vee. I listened to him, not so much now, but a while ago I did. But do you know what? It's not so much. Do you ever think to yourself, just with business in general? I speak about this like on occasion, but I was only talking to somebody about this yesterday because they weren't happy in their job and they were complaining about their manager. And I was like, I've been in that position so many times. Partly that is, it's an odd one because you don't commit to you don't fully commit to a job where you know that you're self-sabotaging in a way. You're like, I could fully commit to this job and I could do very well in this job. But then if I do, it might detract me from the writing and the filmmaking. And then you don't want to take the risk. So what happens then is you're working at the bottom of the barrel a little too much, too often. And it starts to provide you with certain anxieties and things like that. But overall, do enough businesses know how to work with their staff?
Probably.
And Sean is a very interesting one, like, because I listen to Sean quite a bit, right? Paddy Jobson.
Yeah.
And he seems to be someone who I totally relate to a lot of what he's saying. And I listen to him and I go, he seems to be coming from that point of view in a way of, now I don't want to speak for him, but for myself, do businesses know how to work with their staff properly? I'd
say it's harder to find people to work with that you actually respect and admire. And I heard a good metric for this from Mark Zuckerberg. He was on the Lex Friedman podcast. Really good podcast. And, I'll give Mark, he has a hard job, right? But anyway,
fuck Mark.
I'll say about Mark, well, that's what I thought before I went into it. But he said when he's hiring people, he asked the question, let's say he's hiring people, it's like, would I be okay working with this person? Mm-hmm. Would I be happy with that? And it doesn't mean, it doesn't matter what role they're at. It's like, because you can sense that about someone. It's like you can get a gauge for them in an hour, and it mightn't be correct, but another good metric is don't get into business with somebody that you wouldn't be willing to get into business with forever. Before you get into business, like, would I be willing if this went on till the end of time? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is no, then it's like you shouldn't get into the business with them, because there's something in you that feels that they're not on your full wavelength or trustworthy, or you don't admire them enough. They're not someone that you should be getting into business with. And I think when you are looking for work, and it's hard for you to gauge in the interview process how the culture is, because people spin all this and give you all the niceties or whatever. But I found, my partner in crime, Chuck, if you're out there, who I'm building this app with,
go Chuck.
I respect him and I admire him, and like there's aspects of him that I aspire to emulate, and in that regard, then it's great working with him, and we're like, we get along really well. And even his brother now, who I'm working for as a contracting gig, his older brother, Freddie, he's one of the best managers I've ever had. Mm-hmm. He's real knowledgeable about the space. Like he's like a a software developer turned manager. So, and then the ideas he has about communication and how he handles communication. I'm just being explicit. I'm like, I think you're doing a great job. And then he'll say, oh, this is what I think I've done well to achieve that with communication, like how to communicate. And,
proper leader.
Proper. And so there are people... And before this, I've had some terrible luck with people that I won't get into.
Get into it.
And no, definitely not. But there's definitely the possibility that you can find people that you would really want to work with, and you really wouldn't mind working with.
Yes. Now, none of that, by the way, is to sound like whinging. I just have a point of view. I have a point of view. Great for Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is in the position where he can sit there and go, can I work with that guy, right? If you are the regular everyday person who's going in for a job, you're not entirely, it depends on how you view your position going into an interview, but you need the job, you need the money, so you're going to end up with whatever manager you end up with or whatever owner you end up with. And you're only going to find out later what kind of person that is. But now you're in the job already. And in my experience in sort of different areas that I've worked in, and none of them are at a very high level. Like I've had jobs which have been, decent enough jobs. But you often look at the management and you go, you've just no fucking idea how to manage the people that are working for you. These staff are what make your business grow. They're what make it inviting for people to come back to, for example. When you're constantly just crushing those people on the ground floor to make you more money, and then when they're not making money, you fuck them out and you bring someone new in, you go, do you not understand that that's not good for your business? Because you're constantly keeping the quality very low. And I just always look and I go, I couldn't do this in the long term. I respect, and you not just me, but other people. You want people that you can work with who you respect the ideas.
Yeah.
And I feel that for me personally, the only way I'd ever be in that position would be to do what I know, which would be directing or writing. Anything else, I've not really put enough time into that I feel like I'd be in that position. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
like you're what, a programmer?
Yeah, like I'm a software. We put engineer on the word software, even though engineering is a lot more serious, because if you make a bridge wrong, people are going to die. But if you see some of the code that I've written and the amount of times there's issues with it, which is all the time. Anytime you write something, you have it wrong, and then you refactor, you get it. It's a real quick feedback loop though with software, and obviously, self-driving cars and all that kind of stuff, that's a different level, and there are different ways to make it more of a computer science-y kind of thing, where everything is formalizable and provable. But for everyday web development, engineer, it just looks great on the Tinder profile, you know what I mean?
On the Tinder profile.
And LinkedIn profile.
A lot of software engineers just constantly getting laid off of Tinder.
Actually, maybe it's actually hindering my chances, actually. But maybe
you should
I'll look
change
into
that.
Yeah, what should I do?
Porn star.
Entrepreneur, porn star.
Porn stars.
Then they might start looking. And then they might start finding, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
Basil's on. It's the only reason I had to change my name, you know what I mean?
Just you in a G-string, legs spread on your Tinder
That's next
profile.
Week's episode.
Oh, well, there you go.
But I think...
Tune in for next week. We're coming through Tinder ideas.
We're doing it live! No, but... What you could do to mitigate the chance of getting into the wrong place is use things like Glassdoor. Try to talk to people on LinkedIn because LinkedIn's it's such a great resource, not just for people looking for jobs, but people looking to find related business partners or to get into, because you can find people by job title and by previous job title. It's insane. And you can find people who've worked for X company and be like, oh yeah, I'm looking to join this company and I'm doing an interview, so what should I look out for? Like, do you think this is a good idea? And then they can give you a bit more, blah 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 blah. But if you're more worried just about what space you'd want to get into, it's just like it's hard. It's like when I had to leave Ireland to start my career as a software developer. You know what I mean? There's software developer. That's That's more Tinderizable maybe, and a little bit more true. You know, you're developing stuff. But the point is that I had to leave and I had to start at the bottom. Now we're here. You know what I mean? But I was terrible when I started, and I thought I was better. Do you ever hear this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where let's say when you start something and you start getting okay at it, you gauge your abilities to be way better than what they are, because it's only when you get really good that you realise you don't know anything. You know what I mean? So, and I started off, I could do this, I could do code, blah, blah, blah. But I was very, the thing I was messy. Like, my personality is kind of all over the place, and that kind of was in my code. I wasn't as thorough, and I had some good mentors who I don't really respect, but he had like OCD about code in a way. Like, everything had to be neat and perfect, like a craftsman with a table. Whereas before, I was just like, yep, did it. Give me my little pat on the head, like, and then it's like, hold on, it doesn't work in this situation. Did you think about that? You didn't even look at that. What about this name? It's terrible. So you need to, but I had to go through that, and I had to work to where I'm at now, which, like, I consider myself very confident in the space, and it's amazing, like, what I can do now and how I can kind of relate when I think back. Obviously, you can never really fully relate, but I've spent, like, 7 years more, like, getting really into, I did a bit in college, but, college was just kind of skating by or whatever. But you need to find a space, I think, where there is room for growth, and where it's not just a dead end kind of, ordeal, where there's no room to learn and grow, like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So,
do you know, it's a really rough way to segue into it, but do you know what underlies sort of the thought of not wanting to work for other people? It's not. I'd like to think it's a bit more of a broader perspective, not just for me, but like in general. You realise, and again, it's really rough, but do you ever read the book *Sapiens*? Yeah. I read stuff like that, Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock, stuff like that, right? And like real Joe Rogan followers. He goes on about them all the time.
Read it while I'm playing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. But I was like, right, I'll pick them up. And it was actually the *Sapiens* one. It was just, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. He was like, I have that at home, I'll give it to you. And I read these, and I realise what we've sort of come from, and sort of a bit more of what I believe we're about, or what we are about. And I go, what we were never supposed to be was just about the great job and the money and stuff like that. But that's the way society is, And I believe that, look, people do what's right for them. They take the job that's right for them, and they want security. But I go, but if you weren't just thinking about security, what would you want to do? If it's
But there is something nice about,
again, do you know what? That's such an incomplete fucking thought.
No, I know what you mean. But we take for granted, right? Okay, we might have a job that we hate, but earning money is good, I think. And I know people might have to sell their soul to it, but it's just, this is the nature of the game, right? We don't have to hunt in the fields anymore. We don't have to pick the barley. We don't have to, like, lick the king's toes or whatever. We do these things, these orchestrated, abstracted work that, could be meaningless in a way. And I think more of them jobs will be automated over time. But, you can't take for granted that having capital and earning money can potentially be used as tools to move you in a particular direction. So you sacrifice your time to earn money to, maybe buy a bit of equipment or try to invest it into this other thing. That's what I've done. Everything, like, as soon as I get money, I've bought mics, I've bought laptops. I always, if there's something that will help me experiment in a space in the best optimum way. Even my guitar, I upgraded the pickup system, spent like 250 quid, then 50 quid for someone to install it. and the person that installed it messed up the tuning, so then I had to pay 24. I'm after putting so much money into that guitar,
And I never used
and I haven't even used it yet. You know what I mean? I haven't got to like. So I'm hoping to record the songs, whatever. So I put money always back into myself. In that
in
way.
fact, I'm not like anti-money.
No,
I'm not anti-money, or I'm not like.
but it's okay. Like that's what I mean. If you can sell your soul, sell your soul, everybody. That's the answer, and that's the method or the main takeaway from this podcast. It's okay if you have to do it for a bit. If you have other goals, and you shouldn't feel, that's necessarily it's like pure evil. It depends. If you are just doing it, you don't know what you're doing, and you're just like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Then that's a bad place to be. But there are situations where it's like, I know what I'm doing here. I'm gonna just eat shit for a bit and just get this done, and then I'll be in a better place after I'm done. But and not everybody knows or has any inclinations to do anything outside of work as well. So you're an ambitious person, and there's the curse of ambition is it's never really enough. Like even though as you move through it, you know what I mean. And I think you have to be kind of self-aware in that you're never going to be fully satisfied, and that's fine because the work itself is enjoyable as long as you're doing the work. If you're procrastinating and you feel bad, that's when the ambitious person starts feeling depressed and sad because they're not doing the work. But there are people that will just, they'll earn their salary and they don't really care about doing it. They'll play Fortnite or they'll do something else.
You a procrastinator? You're not, are you?
100%. Like,
are you?
Oh man,
You seem to be like fucking at something all day long.
I am at something all day long, but
well, that's not procrastination then.
No, let me explain. Sometimes in the mornings, instead of getting stuck in, I'll drive to McDonald's to get a coffee or something. Or I can it depends on what the work is, right? It's all about habit. You need to form habits. So after work I come down, I play guitar. In the mornings I'm trying to create that piano habit, but then if I wake up too late, then if I wake up too late, all my kind of stuff goes out the window. But obviously I start work at 9. That's kind of a constant in a way. But I do procrastinate. I'll procrastinate by doing work that's not the important work. Okay. Like for example, creating a
that's even more impressive.
No, but it's not really though, because there's stuff that should be done that's more important, but it's harder. You know what I mean? It's harder to come up with a comedy sketch or to start writing a new song than it is to start making a little hashtag generator for myself, so I don't have to do it manually. I have a generator, but I want to add it to the website.
Right.
But I think it's a cool little thing. I like coding so much. You know what I mean? And
God, it's a strange sentence.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I'm so lucky in that I'll always have the programming, and the money is decent from it now that I've earned it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't at the start. I just had to accept what people were, and I was just like, yeah. But now that I've earned the expertise, it's great. But I'll always have the programming, and I don't need to make money from anything outside of that. That's what I realised. You know what I mean? From this beautiful pink wall, from the didgeridoo, from your presence, I don't need money from any of this because I'll make money from the program. And then everything else I can just enjoy it and relax and really, really just enjoy it. And I don't have to. I don't need to post at certain frequencies. I can just do whatever now. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to get to in my head.
Tell me about tell us even about the app.
Well, we'll go. We're extending on now. It's 1 hour and 7 minutes, Dan. So we'll do a little bit more, will we? Or do you want to just slice this off at the head?
Sorry about him. He's never done this before. I mean,
we're gonna go for a few more hours. Are you ready? Because we're getting into the app.
Well, here's the thing. After all that, I said it at the start, like I'd like to know a little bit more about the app.
Yeah,
but I mean, fuck it. We could just cut it off right there if you like.
No,
just leave it that way.
See, I'm avoiding talking about the app because I'm scared that I won't be able to articulate it well enough.
Oh, that's what you do. I see.
You can see it's a defense mechanism.
Well, articulate.
I'll alter. Well, articulate. I was kind of a nightmare that. But so the app that I've been muttering on in little sprinkles here and there is called Innercast, and it's going to be a social podcasting app. So you're going to have traditional podcast player, just similar to what people are probably familiar with Spotify now or Podcast Republic, or there's so many podcast players. But the difference is that all the podcasts that are on like Apple or whatever will be available on the app, or are available on the app. And then you can also post your own audio clips. And so you don't subscribe to podcasts, you kind of follow them. And podcasts and user are on the same playing field. So we're just capitalizing. Imagine Instagram for audio, where it was just you posted audio messages and that's all you posted. That's the kind of world we're creating. And you reply to people in audio. You don't reply with text. It's all, you post an audio clip and then that appears, and then you get notifications when someone else replies. And we have all these ideas about how to improve kind of audio communication with people to make it real accessible, you know, because if I send you a 10-minute clip of me just rah, 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 and then you have to reply to that, it's very kind of daunting, and it's like, oh, what did he say, or this and that. So maybe if we had a transcript of the audio, we'll see what we broke there. We're still good. You'll have a transcript of the audio. You'll be able to take notes potentially as well. So then you'll be able to, you know, better have something to jump off and reply back to the person. So we'd like it to be just because people have a tendency to dislike the sound of their own voice, which I don't understand, because I love the sound of my voice, as you can tell. It's everywhere. It's in here. It's out there.
Everywhere.
And now it's going to be an Innercast.
It's like a podcasting version of Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I'm making an app so I can hear my own voice even more. I'm going to reply to myself over and over. But we had this idea for ages ago, me and Chuck. The idea has kind of grown, and it's been like 3 or 4 years. We're only full time on it though the last few months. We were kind of tipping away at it, and it really shows, you know, if you have an idea. Me and Chuck now, like, are experienced developers. Like, he's more back end focused, I'm more front end focused, but we're full stack. We do it all, you know what I mean? But it takes so much work to get an idea off the ground. Like, ideas, you know, you shouldn't even care about telling people ideas, because like no one's going to go off and do it. Everyone just loves a bit of talk and this and that, but action. That's the same with everything. It's like no good talking about writing the song, no good talking about releasing the song or doing the podcast. Oh, how many people have said they wanted to do a fucking podcast? Or how many people said they wanted to start a blog and then write one page on some little, which I've done. I've told people, do you know what we love? We love telling people we're going to do the thing. I've told people I'm going to do the blog. Years ago, when I was just writing big rants on Facebook, I was filled with so much self-flagellation back then when I was a young Facebooker making funny pictures, and I loved the likes, you know what I mean? I was like all about that, and I was delighted with myself. And it's just so strange though, the youth, the kind of I was trying to fit on some hierarchy as a young lad that it kind of disgusts me now in a way. Like, I'm embarrassed. But anyway, what was the point? Innercast and stores very soon, potentially. You know. And what about your short film, Dan?
No. Hang on. What I was going to say to you was, how'd you feel you did?
In this?
Yeah. In articulating your idea.
Not great.
Like,
I got to
record lows in terms of downloads. But I mean, you see the audio responsiveness. Why?
Well, the big issue I see with our current text is good, right? Text is good if you need to organise going somewhere, or facts, or having written down. But
no tone of voice.
There's no tone of voice.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
inflection.
That's what I was asking you. Yeah,
speaking is very musical, and actually they did a study where most cultures actually fall on the same musical scale. They have different names for it, whatever, but we all discover the same musical scale. I'll tell you how Plato discovered pitches. Like he heard lads hammering on an anvil. And one had a bigger hammer and one had a smaller hammer. And he noticed the pitches were different. And they're different because the weights of the two things. So then he went down this rabbit hole and he started getting strings of different length. And he found that if he made a string 1 meter long and 2 meters long, if he flicked both of them, like ding, then the other one, ding, ding. That's how he discovered the octave. And he discovered other musical theory elements as well that I won't get into now. But we want to try to bring our humanity back into our conversation and into our communication, because how many times if you put your own sort of like veil on text. You're reading it. I read in a voice that is basically the voice of the internet or whatever my brain has developed. It's not as true to the person, you know what I mean? And I think you're seeing the technology exists where we can send audio messages, you know what I mean? And it works. And I think we have to just let people, because we do it in conversation. We can have a conversation with somebody and we don't care about the sound of our voice then, but we hate being, well, some people don't like being recorded until when you start doing it. That's what we want to try and do. We want to push the next iteration of communication forward, basically.
How long can these clips be?
So that's been up to a lot of discussion between me and Chuck. So right now, replies can be like 4 minutes, and I think casts themselves can be 20 minutes. But if you do a podcast, you can just have your podcast hosted and we'll scrape it in. So that's a way to get around it. But if you're just doing...
What's that mean, scrape it in?
Oh, so we... Imagine iTunes.com. They list all their podcasts, right? But if you have a podcast, it's not hosted by iTunes. You host it somewhere else on a URL. It's an RSS feed URL. And it's kind of the last sort of relic of the previous open internet in a way, because it's so democratic. It's not Facebook, it's not anyone. You just need an RSS link, and then iTunes will be able to get you. You just submit it to iTunes. But then what we do, instead of having to create our own directory where people submit it, we just scrape the information off iTunes. So we send a robot out, and he'll get all the links, or she, and get all the other information. It's definitely a lad, by the way. You know, you don't want to put up with it like other than this lad, little scraper bot. But so they go out and scrape it all, and then we use that data. And that's actually a big part of business in the modern age. Like jobs boards will scrape the data. Yeah, it's a massive thing.
I was watching a fella on. I realised we sound like Joe Rogan, like apostles or something. But
what? Look, I have the mic, the Shure 57B.
But I was watching a fella recently for a few minutes now, who was talking about scraping and all that, and how sort of websites can follow you from one website to the other to track all your information and stuff like this. And I was like, oh my dear God, why do we use the internet? But I hear scraping, and all I think of is, well, that's not great, is it? Like it's following.
So this really interests me, because I'm on the total opposite end.
Now I know nothing about this, by the way.
Of what you're talking about, being tracked.
Yeah.
And given, like, I let Google into my life to such a degree. Like, have an
Alexa or something.
I don't want to get into this now, but because I don't, like, people will say their phones are listened to all the time. But anyway, I don't want to get into that because I'll lose half my audience. But I actually have it set up on my phone. No. They're not. It's not in the way that you think, and it's only what you say you're able to do. Because I don't want to get too into it, but Google are a company of engineers, and there's never been a whistleblower. There's 10,000 people working at Google, and if there was some nefarious program going on to record people's data and then use it for ads, which is such a trivial, ridiculous thing to put so much resource in, when really they're tracking you on a much deeper level, on your searches, on your email, on your Google Docs, any services that you use on Google, they can see all your data. You know what I mean? They don't have to listen to you. But there's definitely coincidence, I think, that makes people think they heard that and then listened to an ad. No, it's not. That's not the way. And all you have to do is realise is that there's been never any whistleblowers. It's all speculation. And so
if I go home and Google, has there ever been a Google whistle? Well, it probably won't tell me, but I won't find a single story about a Google whistleblower. What
you'll find is that there's stories of Amazon, Alexa, people reviewing recordings that are accidental recordings. So, hey Alexa, then it's recording.
Right.
And you'll find stuff like that where people were reviewing the data. That came out, and that was a massive news. 20 people in a room listening to reviewing to improve the service, and they had to cancel it because of the backlash. If there was people listening to it, this is front page news. This would be the biggest scandal in the world. And it's not the case that it's happening. And they'd have to tell you. They tell you exactly what they're doing. I have something set up on my phone now Where Google, no, well, if they're a company and they're not a government agency and they're not departmentalized military institutions, it's very hard to hide anything. They can't hide even simple reports that Facebook did on the potential ill effects to teenage girls on Instagram. That was massive news, and that wasn't even that actually showed that Facebook were looking into the matter and they were trying to figure out where the dangers were. It actually was a positive thing, but because it came out in the way it did came out, because they found some harm, but they also found positive things as well, which wasn't reported. That was a massive scandal, and that's nothing compared to they're listening to us all the time. And people think that Facebook and Google, like if my phone is Google and I get an ad on Facebook, that makes no sense to think they were listening, because they're different companies and they're not sharing data. The data is the gold. They want the gold to themselves, Dan.
But the data is valuable in terms
100%.
of monetarily, like it's
and they
valuable.
have enough of it, man. We're giving it to them by the buckets.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
What was there was like, and I'm not disagreeing with you because I don't know enough to otherwise. But what I always think is, be careful of going down the road of, yeah, but they can't and they won't and they blah blah blah, because you're talking about levels way above sort of the average human being there, like collusion and whatever else. I always think, like, if it's conceivable, it can be done, regardless of, you know, whether you think ethically they will or morally they will. If it's conceivable, it can be done.
I think what it comes down to is if there was whistleblowers like the NSA, Edward Snowden, stuff will come to the light. These companies have been around for a while now, and stuff will. Was it Snowden that said something about it? But that NSA, in 2004, sort of government agencies realised the potential of what Google could do in terms of harnessing information. So what I would say is that the government agencies have access to the infrastructure, the actual data, the actual wire and stuff that's moving the data, which is a totally different level of access to things like. So they have a level of access, and they're not obligated to have privacy documents or be audited, or they have to be very careful with how they use the data because of GDPR. If they're found, and they have to stay in line, otherwise they're going to lose millions. It's all, they'll lose percentages of their profits, so it's very dangerous. And but percentages, the percentages of what they lose are never in any way damaging to the overall money that these companies earn. It's like, however, whatever. And come here, I'm not arguing either way, Frank. Yeah. I'm just making a point that, you know, Facebook, you know, leaking all these or stealing information, whatever it was that Mark Zuckerberg was up in front of the Supreme Court for, whatever it was. What was it? Was that leaking information or no, that was people's passwords or something? There was someone who built a Facebook app that people played, and they exported, because if you can create an app and you have a sign in with Facebook button, for example, people signed in with Facebook, and in the request they give you their email, they give you the user's name, but they used to give you loads of more stuff, and they basically harness all that. But it was people knowingly playing a game, and then they got the data. It's not like there was a little hack or anything like that. It was just a loop. It wasn't even a loophole. It was just, they were just basically giving out too much data that they got way more. Because I've used these APIs, I've used the Google sign-in and stuff, and like, if you're publicly available information like email and stuff, but it tells you, it says your email and thing will be shared with this person. Now, before it wasn't that way. It was way more. It could be way more intrusive, but that was them lads, Analytica, someone Analytica.
Yeah,
they
Harvard.
They just yeah. But so that wasn't. So that was just a loophole in Facebook's system, basically. So Facebook, like. But
then why does Mark Zuckerberg need to answer for that if that's the case?
Well, he was.
I mean, he was answering for that, basically. Like, they were treating him almost like a criminal from the parts that I'd seen.
Because of that, then that data was used against the company, or like the political situation at the time. So, and then there was all this stuff with Russian like hackers and stuff that, you know, because his system was being used, it's like, obviously he has to be questioned, like, how are you letting this happen in a way? You know what I mean? And unfortunately, he, like, I'm not saying he's perfect, but like, what would you like? Everyone in his situation would have a very hard time handling it, like having to handle all the nuance of building this massive company that reaches billions of people. Content moderation. They have teams of people just, you know, stop getting rid of people getting beheading videos and all. You know what I mean? They have people to watch. They have to watch these horrendous videos, and like it's like psychological torture in a way. I hope they get paid well. But I'm probably watching this now.
Yeah, that's actually one, because you're more knowledgeable than I am. But I've picked up bits and pieces around the place. That's something that, you know, if we were to do it again, we could speak about that. Because honestly, I do find that like the internet and the sort of the people that control it, it's murky stuff. It is, and there's enough evidence out there that it's being controlled, and people are Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica is the one.
But when you're the way you're saying that, it sets up a scenario that sounds worse than it is.
I don't know. It's pretty bad.
Explain what you mean by that.
Oh, well, we'll come back to it, though.
All right, we'll come back. Tell me about your short film.
No, I don't. Nah, look, it's been done this.
No, you tell me about it.
No, but what I was saying.
Tell me about the film.
Is, haven't they shown that through Cambridge Analytica, in fact, that certain countries, voting was being affected in certain countries through the likes of Facebook and things like that? Why? Because of advertising. So what they do is they would advertise to a particular age group or gender, a particular party or party member.
They used to have birthdays. They could sell people T-shirts. I was born on October 17th. That's how good it was, and people made a fortune doing that.
No, I'm just saying it's not coming from nowhere. These ideas.
Who do you think's in control here? That's a loophole in the system that was taken advantage of.
Who do I think is in control? Somebody that has no face. They're there pulling strings.
In that instance, what you just described is a public company taking advantage of a loophole in a computer system, basically.
Do you know what? What I'm saying is, as an idea, right?
That's love to control.
As an idea, right? What I'm saying is, like, it could happen. There's a couple of people out there that control, you know, certain companies that are a big deal, right? As an idea. The more I speak about it, though, because I don't know enough about it, I sound like a conspiratorial nut, right? And they're all sitting there going, he's a conspiratorial nut.
No. I'll let you know. I love conspiracies, and I've gotten into all of them, Dan. I've gotten into all of them. If you could see my old Facebook, you could see me posting a video about, and I'm very disappointed about this because it just took a little bit more thinking about it to realise this is not the case. But there was a very convincing video on the Sandy Hook shootings that I was young and I was down the rabbit hole of conspiracies. I love conspiracies.
So do I.
And I was like, look at this video, look at all the inconsistencies, whatever. But then then when I heard this argument from Sam Harris, who the same with 9/11 and stuff, I used to love all that stuff as well. But when it comes down to it, it comes down to, is there enough people that will keep their mouth shut and not say anything? And can we even hide any secrets? I don't think so. From my opinion of just seeing how, I think no one's in control. I think we're all just winging it. I honestly think that. And I think that everything that you see that's nefarious is just incompetence, and just there's no one in control. There's no one at the helm. We're all just absolutely winging it.
That is such rainbow thinking. Right? Positive rainbow thinking.
What do you think is the case?
Do you know what? Here's the thing, right? Any conspiracy, any sort of bad news can come out. Any sort of really damning news can come out. If you're big enough, you can quash that. You can demean the person's character, and that's what they do in politics and stuff like that. You damage and you make their character questionable, so that what they've said about you is called into disrepute. If that's so, the truth can come out. But then, if you're good enough, or if you're big enough, if you've got the right connections, you can make that go away, and you can carry on. There's a book, and we're going way over time, but there's a book, Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. He was one of the big people involved in getting Harvey Weinstein right? He won the Pulitzer Prize for this book. It's Woody Allen's son. He had all the reports, the paperwork, everything needed, because he was working as a journalist at the time. And every avenue that he went to, they were like, no, we're not, you're not. He would speak to, I think it's Noah Oppenheim, I think was the guy who was the big wig at the company at the time. And he came in and he was like, look, I've got all this information about a big guy in Hollywood who is, potentially molesting or sexually assaulting women. And this guy's really interested. And then he mentions a name. And he's like, okay. Yeah, we can't go near that. Right? And there was a reporter for a particular newspaper who was proven to be catching and killing stories. They'll buy that story from somebody, and then it goes into a safe for a certain amount of money, never to be seen again. So it's not just incompetence. There is definitely people who are controlling the flow of information 100%.
No, and what you're describing though is there's real conspiracy and there's real possibilities of misinformation. And I don't know, it's probably the guards looking for Basil Breen. But what you're describing is not a grand conspiracy. That's what.
Well, it can get up there too.
See, what you described is perfectly reasonable, and it comes out. You know this information. You've heard this information. So it's not like, and it's verifiable, this stuff. You know what I mean? What you're saying at the journalists, like journalists have a certain code of ethics. I know you could, real good, like where you have to kind of have, you have to have the documents, you have to have the facts to back things up, whatever. But anyway, what I'm saying is, we'll come back to this.
Yes.
Because it's such a deep topic.
I'm going to tool up to the nines.
But let me know what you're doing with your short film and what's it about.
Look, it'll be. Well, I'm doing it this Sunday.
Where are you doing it?
Oh God, what a hammy way to get into it. I really wanted to stick on that one as well.
We'll get it. It's like someone's knocking at the door.
It's taken.
Someone gotta get the door.
Basically, it's three fellas, and two of them, it's driver and passenger, imaginatively named, and they've kidnapped an ex-boss, believe it or not. Yes, because he didn't give something to that to passenger that he rightly deserved, so he's kidnapped his boss to get it. Now it's a black comedy, and it actually feeds a lot into what we've been speaking about,
Lovely.
throughout this whole thing. But this
has just been a big ad for it.
It's well, and now
if you make it this far, we'll cut out this clip for you.
I'm playing passenger now. Do you know what it was? I wrote it and I thought I could do that, but then you seem like a big-headed twat who's full of himself if he takes the lead role. But then I'm looking through actors and I'm going, I don't know if just for this particular role. I have the other roles filled, two really good fellas, and I have a great crew as well. But for this particular one, I was like, well, obviously the only person's hands it's safe in is the writers.
Hello? We're recording now.
I want my fucking key.
Oh, no.
I want my fucking key.
He wants his key.
Yeah.
Sean, can you look upstairs to get that key? We're nearly finished. The Basil Breen Boombox is getting interrupted here, and no one's going to make it this far in it anyway.
Right.
Look, for Sean, my key's upstairs. I'll get it for you. We're gonna finish up, right?
I'll go up and get it. You just keep chatting.
I don't know, like it's somewhere.
Yeah.
It's somewhere.
Yeah.
We don't edit either. What happens on the Boombox is in the Boombox. So you're saying you're putting yourself forward for the leading role.
Yeah, it is. Believe it or not, it is actually reluctantly, because I could also butcher this.
And is there a female lead as well?
No.
Who's not your girlfriend?
Three fellas. It's three fellas. We'll see how it goes this Sunday. And then
it must be hard to have to gather so many people.
Do you know what? Actually, funnily enough, I don't even really want to talk about it.
Oh!
No, here it is. If it bombs, then it's like, eh. And it's supposed to happen 2 weeks ago. But the weather keeps calling it off. You wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, fuck.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, look, let's zoom out for a sec, because it's just, it's a very difficult thing to have to rely on multiple people that aren't yourself in order for something to happen. Which is, it's it's very interesting
especially
about
when you're not paying.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very difficult pursuit what you're trying to do. So, like, you know, I appreciate your efforts. You know what I mean? Because it's a hard thing to try and do to get. Because there's so many facets to that. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable, really.
I am providing some form of restitution.
Yeah.
In terms of travel and food and things
But
like
also,
that.
people get to be in, if they have any inclinations to want to be in sort of a short film or anything, then it's good that there's opportunity there as well.
Yeah. We'll see how we go. It'll be bigger than next one. This one I just needed something small. Honestly, because I've written a load of stuff. I've not directed anything in 5 years.
Yeah.
And the last thing I did, I think we did a good job on it, but the editor lost the sound files.
No.
So that we spent ages trying to put it together and it just didn't work out. But this one, I actually really surprised at the level of the crew that are involved. Like, they're genuinely brilliant, and I'm like, how is that?
Oh, wow.
And they actually, one, it's a project for them to get involved in. Two, they like the script, and three,
that's
it's
the big
fairly
one.
simple, takes place over the course of one day. Right, let's go for it. So hopefully now, if it stays clear on
Yeah.
Sunday, we can get it done.
That's the kind of stuff you should be looking at, like as easy as possible. You know what I mean? But keeping if other people like this, that's actually a good measurement though of if it's decent, if it's worth doing. I think if other people are happy with the script, then it's like this is definitely something worth doing.
There was an actor there who was to play the lead role, right? So I picked him. I was like, you're right, grand, we're in. He was like, if we're shooting this weekend, I'm in. If it's not this weekend and it's next weekend, I can't do it. We're like, right, well, it will be. So he had to come out of it. But he read it and he went, do you know I'm actually going through this right now in my own life? I was like, well, that's brilliant. Taking it, and that's what I found with people who've read it is they go, I can relate to that. And I go, brilliant. You know? So now...
Is that something you're consciously aware of when you're writing something?
Yes.
Like, yeah, you're trying to...
It's one of those things that... It seems... I don't necessarily want to say it out loud, but it's one of those things where you go, I hope it relates. Do you know what, actually? You've seen Superbad.
Yeah.
Who is it? Is it Evan Goldberg, Seth Rogen? When they wrote that, apparently they were like 12, 13 when they wrote that at first. And they said, we just wrote about something that we thought was just about us. Just us. And we found out that related to so many people around the world. So with this one, I actually specifically am writing about something that really overtly relates to me. Friends of mine will look at this and go, I remember this. You know, aside from the kidnapping the boss, that never happened, right? But the story I know. So this time I was like, I'm going to write something that is very much about me and then hope it relates. And then you get a couple of people who are involved who are like, I relate to that. And I'm like, that's what I was after. Brilliant. But I always try, I realise with my writing, there's always a heavy element of realism in terms of the people I'm trying to write about. They're not Clark Kent.
Yeah.
You know, they're sort of John down the road there. That's what they always are.
Super John.
Super John down the road, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I don't want to say too much about it.
No,
It could
that's
be absolute
fine.
muck.
This is the problem I face, or that I'm trying to overcome, is that level of perfectionism and worry of the work not being, you know, to where you want it to be. You know what I mean? Because people, even if people like it and you don't, you're not happy with it because of, you know, for me in the music, it's like certain parts of the song, I just missed it a little bit, but no one even notices or whatever. You know what I mean? But I'm like, there was, you not tell it was real. It was a bit loud.
Yeah, but you know what, right? I think, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier on when I was asking you, do you care for your stuff to be pristine? I realised I was in, because I'm such an uptown fella, like I was in an art gallery in Bilbao.
One of your regular trips.
Subtle. But I was walking through, right, and you look at these Rothko paintings, which are like, what are they? I think they're two different colours, red and yellow. And it amazes me, you look and it's just like red on one half, yellow on one half, right? And you go, that's worth tons of money. But it's very clean looking. And then I looked at other artists who, it literally looked like they just picked up a bucket of stuff and just fucking launched it at a canvas. And I loved it. And I walked out and I consciously said to myself, I realised that my aesthetic is a bit more rough and ready. Like, I want it to be a punch in the gut kind of thing. It's not... Are you a big film fan?
Yes, I would say so.
You know David Fincher, the likes of Gone Girl.
Good, I know Inception, I know film names, right?
Right. So the likes of, we'll say Fight Club or Gone Girl or Seven or any... Like, they're gritty. But
The writer you're talking about?
David Fincher's the director.
Oh.
Right? But David Fincher is always, like, 30 takes. He wants... perfection in the acting. He's that kind of technically superb kind of. I'm not a David Fincher. I'm more of like Paul Greengrass, who did the Bourne films. Documentary filmmaker. He wants to just catch what's happening as it's happening.
Yeah.
That would be more me. I want to sort of punch you in the gut with what I do. So let's see if that
You're a
happens.
violent person.
That's it. Yeah.
I really want to get
I'm actually
in there.
on set. I'm notorious for just beating people.
Well, like when I was watching the Beatles documentary, I realised there needs to be someone at the helm because
I don't beat people, by the way.
no, I was just kind of hopefully get over that. This is a gotcha kind of interview. You know what I mean?
Clip it up.
But
The Beatles
anyway,
doc, sorry, yeah.
I was just going to say the Beatles documentary, seeing Paul McCartney kind of lead the creative process. Just having someone someone always feels the leadership position, and obviously when you're directing, you'll fall into that naturally, and you have to, over here, yeah, you got to do this, got to do that.
Yeah,
to some extent, I guess. Not
like,
Harvey Weinstein,
for me, like I want to turn up and know what my script is about, right? What I love about the crew especially with this one, we probably could have shot last week if it wasn't for the rain. But one of the guys who's doing the cinematography wasn't able to make it. And I thought to myself, you can find somebody else and do it this weekend, or you can wait. And this is out tomorrow, probably. They'll be listening before we start. I'm invaluable. Yeah. But I realised the relationship between 2 or 3 of the crew members, I was like, that is so good. The level of knowledge and the communication between them was like, wait on a week for that guy to come back, then let's do it. Because they are able to tell me about, well, why don't we do this? Because on camera, I'm not technically fantastic. Sound, not technically fantastic. Not technically fantastic anywhere, right? But with those guys, they can say, here's what we can do. Brilliant, let's do that. That's what I want in that environment. That's what I love about that environment is we're creating something and I had an idea, but you came in with something and I like yours. So let's do that.
It's better because the whole in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I would love if I was able to make something top to bottom and it was superb just because of me. But that doesn't happen. You want the input of other people. And that's partially why I do it, because you're fostering that energy, that creativity. That's why I want to do it. And that's why when I think to myself, if it's not working out in general, the writing, the direct, I'll walk away. I go, now there's something about that environment. I want that, So anyway.
Well, look, I wish you all the best with it. It sounds like
Jesus, very interviewer ending that.
It is the Basil Breen Boombox.
I wish you all the
I'm
best
taking
with that.
the fucking reins here, right? Give me didgeridoo. I'm gonna learn how to play it. No, I won't really. I have too much. Well, not enough time. Too many interests. But thanks again, Robbie Bulger. If you've made it to this point, in a fair play to you. Fair play to anyone. I might just cock the ending out so people will see it. But anyway, Dan, you've been a good man.
Thank you.
You, whoever you are, Jesus Christ. It's probably me. It's me listening back for the second or third time. Nah, probably the second time. Maybe once. Once will be enough this time because it's a very long one. And I'm sure... Gotta stop it. I'm gonna stop it there. Goodbye. Very well. Blah, blah, blah. God, stop.